A universe where the Autobots are the villains and the Decepticons are the heroes, with the classic Autobot-Decepticon war ending with the villainous Autobots victorious. The slow decline of the Decepticons under the rule of the three Autobot dictators is changing, as the conflict begins to escalate back to full-blown war as Starscream changes the game. The question is, will Starscream convince Megatron to return from exile? In this review, I'll discuss the second issue of the Shattered Glass story, starting with a spoiler-free assessment and then further thoughts in the spoiler section. If you missed my review of the first issue, here's the review right here so you can get caught up. Without further delay, let's get to discussing issue 2 of the recent Shattered Glass comic. The previous comic establishes that the Decepticons are scattered, trying to survive a Cybertron under the rule of three Autobot dictators. After successfully defeating Blur, Starscream heads to Megatron's hidden location on the edge of the Sea of Lust, bringing the leader of the Decepticons into the story. We get to see the two characters interact with each other, allowing us to understand the dynamic between these Shattered Glass characters compared to their original counterparts. It's a unique take on the typical Megatron and Starscream relationship, and we see the dynamics of this relationship as Starscream attempts to convince Megatron to come out of hiding. The dilemma is the bulk of this comic, opening up to flashbacks of both the characters' past. Personally, I absolutely loved having the focus be on two characters arguing about what to do next as Starscream reveals the reason why he is currently being hunted down. The flashbacks recount significant events in this universe, allowing us to see their different perspectives and reveal a hefty amount of backstory to Megatron, with even some familiar faces being introduced as well. The comic takes a break from the bounty hunter's pursuit of Starscream and it focuses on exploring Megatron and the recounting of crucial events important to Megatron and this universe. The selling point for this comic is the full exploration of Megatron as a character, or a good guy version of him, which avid comic book readers like myself are familiar with. I value character development, so this comic is a tick better than the last issue for me. After all, I'm a sucker for strong character work. In fact, the artwork is a notch better as well, utilizing different conditions present like the Sea of Lust, making characters dirty and worn down, while Life in Iacon has characters clean and shiny. Overall, this comic improves on its predecessor, but now I'm going to get into spoilers, so turn back now if you want to avoid them, or skip to my closing thoughts at the end of the video. So without further ado, here we go. We haven't seen a good guy Megatron since the 2005 IDW continuity where Megatron joins the crew of the Lost Light. Even then, that was a formerly evil, now reformed Megatron, unlike this Megatron being a good guy throughout his own story. There have been other reformed Megatrons in media, but we haven't really seen the exploration of the concept of a good guy Megatron since the Lost Light comics. In fact, the writers of this comic are well aware of that version of Megatron, as Shattered Glass Megatron has a similar backstory to the 2005 IDW Megatron. This exploration of Shattered Glass Megatron's backstory is prompted by the arrival of Starscream, fainting in Megatron's arms due to exhaustion. Megatron fixes up his loyal and sometimes naive lieutenant, and we get to see his thoughts expressed about the situation and how he feels regret for starting the Decepticon revolution and failing to lead them to victory against the Autobots. He has truly decided to now live in exile with nothing but himself and his failure. True to other versions of the character, Megatron stubbornly continues to live, rationalizing that he must be ready for Decepticons needing his help. This mindset is backed up by Starscream knowing where to find Megatron, as Megatron gave out his location to a select few in case of an emergency. It's not like he gave out his location, but then when people come for help, he just complains about not being dead yet and refuses to help them in any way. That would just be the stupidest writing decision ever. Regardless, Starscream tries to sway Megatron by recounting the past, specifically the moment when he first saw Megatron at a protest against the ruling government, making a stand against injustice. Megatron downplays the event as only a scuffle that threw himself in jail. It's a distinct difference between the two characters' recounting of events, highlighting Megatron's depressed yet realistic mindset and Starscream's hopeful envisionment of history. This is where we see heavy leanings of 2005 IDW Megatron's story, being a citizen protesting the current government and knowing Optimus as a cop at the time, bailing him out of jail and removing the charges levied against Megatron. Their conversation escalates into a fight, giving Optimus a broken front window, showing the fracturing of their relationship into the eventual rival leaders of a civil war. Megatron reaffirms his decision for exile by recounting the final battle of Earth, where the Decepticons were defeated. Megatron recounts how he lost his fight with Optimus and was left to die on Earth. The crazy part is Megatron somehow survived the battle, which is a major leap in logic as even a non-evil Optimus would make sure to confirm the kill. Even Optimus in other continuities makes sure that Megatron is firmly dead. It's a major mistake that an evil and egotistical Optimus Prime shouldn't have made. Besides the additional reveal of how Bumblebee became Goldbug, we get to see Starscream's perspective of the event as well. Starscream rationalizes that Megatron did the best he could and was a hero, staying behind as the remaining Decepticons escaped. Starscream correctly states that Megatron's selfless act is the actions of a leader, and it goes against Megatron's belief that he isn't fit to lead the Decepticons again. It's this argument that steers Megatron back from his defeatist mentality, opening up Megatron to consider assisting Starscream in his efforts. I absolutely love this dynamic, Megatron being realistic and focused on the bigger picture, while Starscream is emotional and in the moment. We are able to see a pairing of Megatron and Starscream that complements each other, when in most cases we see the opposite. Other versions of Starscream are usually plotting his downfall, while this one actively supports him and drags Megatron out of his defeatist mindset. This universe of switched roles takes the opportunity to show us a healthy relationship between Megatron and Starscream, and I'm thankful and entertained by this direction they went with. For once, we actually see these two get along, mirroring a strong mentor and student relationship, with a teacher who calls his student a fool sometimes. Despite being a fool, Starscream successfully convinces Megatron to return from exile and to help protect him, as Starscream's spark is now able to awaken a Titan, a giant city-sized transformer. The two now recognize the advantage they now have, so now it's only a matter of time before threats close in on them. It's time to rally the Decepticons for the war that will decide the final fate of Cybertron. Will the Decepticons be victorious, or will the Autobots remain in power and finally decimate the Decepticons? These are questions we'll see in the next issue. This issue builds on the previous comic. It may put a pause on the current story, but it expands on the universe. We get to see also a unique dynamic between the classic characters of Megatron and Starscream. Previous events briefly mentioned in the first issue get to be fully expanded upon in flashbacks, and additional hints about other characters are featured as well. It's an improvement to the first issue, properly expanding on the universe and deepening the characters involved that will be major influences to the fate of Cybertron in the Shattered Glass universe. If you enjoyed the previous comic and are wanting more focus on the characters and fleshing out of the world, then this comic delivers. The only downside is that the current major plot of body scavengers and people hunting Starscream is put on pause, but not for long though. I fully recommend this issue, and I thank you for following the story with me. I'll see you next time. Till all are one.